Hey, everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of Miller's Military Moments. I'm your co host, Jason Miller, Master Sergeant Retired. So that means we've got our other co host, Grant Belvin. Welcome to the show today, brother. How are you?
Good, Jason. Good. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. Glad to have you here. Things been going well. I enjoyed the World War II Museum recently down in New Orleans. And I know we were going to try to meet up there, but things happened, with your life and you couldn't make it, which is, not a big deal, but, man, I had a great time, over there. So that was pretty cool. I definitely want to go and experience it with you at some point. So we'll have to do that.
Yeah, it's on the list for sure.
Awesome. And yeah, definitely. I know people have probably heard the previous episode where I talked about, going there, but I'm going to do about 4 or 5 episodes on just going to visit that museum. So it's pretty important, pretty powerful. So so that's awesome, man. Everything's going good. Glad to hear you're doing well. And man, today we've got a big show. And what do I mean by big show? I mean, we've got a big bully out there doing some big bully things. And Grant, I love your insight into not just military, but your insight into the world, geopolitics, and how it impacts our military, how certain actions are going to take place and what that would mean for our military, and then how it would impact us at home. So I really love talking to you and getting your insight on all those subjects today. And so this big bully we've got out there, China, and we're intertwined economically. I mean, we get that. Like, we're intertwined economically, which why some people are just like, man, we'll never go to war. We'll never go to war with China. Like, it's not going to even be a thing. Let me just keep going and buying all my stuff that's made from China because it's cheap and everything's going to be okay. But we have a few friends over there. Not sure if you realize that, Grant, but we've got a couple friends: Japan, Taiwan, and the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
And that big bully, China, is flexing their muscle over there. So what are some of your initial thoughts on kind of Taiwan, how, kind of where they are in relation to our ally, and what are we required to do, and what do you think about all that?
I never really paid much attention to the difference between China and Taiwan until I had a professor who was Taiwanese when I was going through my bachelor's program after I got out of the Marine Corps. And he had his PhD. This was a business class. I was a business major after I got out, and he found out, I don't know, somehow through conversation in the class, that I was a veteran. And so he started talking to me because he was a veteran in Taiwan. And I think they may have mandatory military service. I can't remember what he said, but
They do.
yeah. So he started talking to me about that. And we had some similarities, some similar experiences. I think he was on ship for a little while, and I don't believe he was in their Navy, but maybe Marine type force. I'm not sure exactly what he did, but anyway, we knew we could speak the same language, so to speak. And I guess a couple of times during class, the topic of China came up, and you could tell in his body language and the way he talked that he wanted to make sure that the class knew that he and his country, Taiwan, were not part of China, and they were a sovereign nation. And he was very adamant about that, not in a negative way, but just saying, hey, Taiwan is a sovereign nation. And he didn't say this exactly, but this is essentially what he was saying. Taiwan's a sovereign nation. I'm Taiwanese. I'm absolutely not Chinese. And we are our own country. And it's similar to how I guess probably early Americans would um, look at Great Britain, once or after the revolution. So it was interesting. That's when I kind of realized, oh wait, Taiwan's not part of China, in my ignorance prior to that. So
Sure.
it was a very real comparison from someone who, is Taiwanese.
And I think that's an excellent point, because how many other people, one, maybe have heard of Taiwan, know where it is, and three, care,
Right.
right? I mean, I'm talking about Americans. We'll just talk about Americans here. I'm American, you're American. We kind of know what some Americans think. So we'll represent America here. Yeah, where is Taiwan? What do they do? I mean, why do I care whether they're part of China or not? Now listen, I'm a history buff. I'm a World War II buff. So I know a little bit more about, what happened towards the end of World War II, and Chiang Kai-shek got pushed out to it used to be Formosa was the actual island before it called Taiwan. So I know a little bit more about that, but most people don't. They have no idea what's going on. They wouldn't know, just like you didn't know that Taiwan wasn't a part of China. And then the other question is, well, who cares? Like,
Hmm.
who cares? So why do we care? Why do Americans care? Why does that professor, that Taiwanese, why do they care?
So they believe it was 1949. They what do you call it? I've lost my train of thought.
No, it's okay. Yeah. So
They
1949.
they essentially seceded from China and
Right.
declared their independence.
Yeah, because the communist China was taking over the country. And after World War II, Chiang Kai-shek, who we supported during the war, him and his followers basically fled to the island of Formosa, which became Taiwan, and they created their own, enclave, their own colony, right? And when you
Hmm.
compare it to England and our colonies, and then China at the time just said, "Fine, do your thing, go hang out in this island," and then nothing that was ever really thought about it at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And now we've got the almost obligation to defend them, help defend them for sure, if not defend them militarily. And China has been aggressive for years, but they've really ramped it up recently.
Right. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're definitely getting more aggressive. And at first, when they didn't care about Taiwan. They thought they would just go away. And
Hmm.
essentially they didn't. They didn't go away, and they started to prosper. And of course, when you think about the 50s and 60s, we want to do anything to stop the spread of communism, right? So
Yep.
we did whatever we could. There was a foothold, right? There's this island that we can just latch onto, and that it'll be close to China, and you know, so we did whatever we could to just kind of get in the area, get in their country, and help them and support them. And then finally, China realized it was like, oh, wait a minute, you know, y'all no, Taiwan is part of us. That is our country. And then Taiwan was like, no, we're not. And so internationally, there is still Taiwan is not an independent country.
Hmm.
Officially, they are still a part of China with some opportunities to sort of kind of be their own, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So throughout this time, over time, we have, we sell them, we supply them with every available ability to defend themselves, right? And we
Hmm.
sell them all this hardware. And why do we do that? Why do we sell them all that stuff? What allows us to do that, I guess, is the question. So for the listeners, like, so we actually have legislation that says, you know we are required to supply them the ability to defend themselves. We're not required to put our people in harm's way to defend them over in tech, but we are required by law to provide them military equipment to defend them from China, which a lot of
Yeah.
people are like, well, okay, that's not that big of a deal. And because we'll go to another, the reason people don't care is when they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about it off the air, skin in the game, right? Like our taxes just go for whatever. Like you pay taxes and then the government decides we have all this revenue and we'll just borrow more money and we'll go and spend X number of dollars. People don't really care or know where it goes. If we sell some fighter jets and shit over to Taiwan, they don't care, right? It doesn't impact them. So
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that's an interesting thing for people to understand, that like, we are selling them equipment and we've got to teach them how to use it and stuff. And so really we kind of, all that is the historical aspect of kind of where we are. And with China, when we talk about the big bully, what are they, when they are starting to bully people in that part of the world, like what are they doing to kind of bully people, in a couple of the countries specifically, and what are they trying to get after over there?
Yeah, so they've recently been flying fighter jets in Taiwan airspace, and almost daily now. I think on the 8th, which was a few days ago, they flew 56 fighter jets into Taiwan airspace, and that's the highest number so far. They've been flying less than that, but it's been on a daily basis. And they've also maneuvered a lot of their ships into the area around Taiwan and into basically Taiwanese waters, not
Why?
far from their coast.
So that's my
And just
question.
the
Why?
aggressive posturing, yeah.
Yeah, why are they doing this? Like, what is their purpose? What is their point? What does China want to get out of this?
Oh yeah, I mean they're Xi Jinping. How do you pronounce his name?
Yeah, I don't
They're
know. President
Chinese.
Xi.
Yeah, Xi. He. I mean, he said that they want to reintegrate, or however they, or whatever they want to call it, Taiwan back into China. So to basically say Taiwan is part of China, they're not a sovereign nation. He's openly said that.
So he's openly said it. And but why do they want to do that? So we know that that's what they want to do, but why do they want to do that? Is there any particular reason that you can think of? I mean, whether it be manufacturing, resources, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, initial thoughts would be microprocessors, microchips produced in Taiwan.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Listen, I'm not the smartest guy on global supply chain inventory stuff, but I know from a little bit of Google searching that a whole lot of microchips and processors are made in Taiwan, like stuff that the world uses, not just us or other people. And if they were to get, I think the number might be 50 or 60, 70%. It's something like that. I think Intel might have overtaken them as the number one producer of chips, but for China to have control over that type of resource, listen, these chips, we can't get cars made quickly enough in America because they're sitting on the lot coming out of the factory waiting on the chip.
Yep.
We can't get enough of these chips, and these chips keep improving. Technology keeps getting more, so they keep getting smaller and smaller and more powerful. But it's a lot of computing power and manufacturing to create these things, and then you've got to ship them out. And so if they were to control a large portion of these chips for the world, I mean, could you just imagine what they would do?
Oh yeah, I mean, you just throw in the lithium mines in Afghanistan and controlling all the lithium batteries along with all the microprocessors.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking grinding the Western civilization to a halt until we can figure out how to manufacture them ourselves enough. I mean, we're trying to, but we're kind of too late. We're behind the power curve right now. We've kind of realized that, oh shit, We should start manufacturing these ourselves and not be solely reliant on the Taiwanese makers, just in case China does, decide to attack and take over. So that is one thing. The other thing I think that people don't realize is that, so China is they are very concerned about how they appear on the international stage. So appearances. And then they're also very concerned about how they appear to their people. So as long as Taiwan remains, quote, semi-independent, it's like a black eye on President or Prime Minister Xi in China. And the people of Chinese are like, well, why are they doing this to our government? So there's that's kind of the second part is like, they don't want to look bad anymore, and they want to take back what is theirs, is kind of my thoughts on that. Which could be even more important than the resources. China's got a lot of people in their country to feed. I mean, they, believe it or not, they bully Vietnam. They control the river, the main river, the water flow down into Vietnam. And, everybody assumes that they're like best friends because they supported them, during the Vietnam War. Really, they just hated us. So they just wanted to make sure we lost. But, they go and control the water flow and will flood Vietnam's rice fields sometimes because it's better for them to have less water or whatever the case is. And then they'll also go and fish in Vietnam's waters in the South China Sea and to take their natural resources because they've got other people to feed. And then we come up with the Philippines. And the Philippines, the Chinese are doing the same thing. They're sending a flotilla of like 250 ships, fishing boats, to go and fish in the Philippines, economic zoned waters. And of course, Philippines makes an appeal to the international community, United Nations. And what do you think everybody's response is?
Oh, well.
Right. Exactly. Like, well, what do you want us to do? Just like the manufactured islands that they built in the South China Sea, right? Mm-hmm. We saw they were building them. We said, don't do it. And then we said, don't put military stuff on there. And they just did it anyway, because nobody said anything to them. I mean, we said it, but we weren't going to stop them. The world has got to stand up and stop them. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just keep bullying everybody because they need these resources. They need these resources to feed their people. I mean, they've got so many that they do need these resources to feed their people. And so when we look at Taiwan, and this is, for the American people, I mean, again, we talked about this at the beginning of the show that like, they may even know where it is. They don't care. But if China decides that we're going to take back Taiwan, and we decide as a nation militarily, we're going to defend against that attack, there is a very good possibility that we are going to lose a lot of soldiers, service members, and equipment. And is our nation ready for that?
No, not at all.
And I think that's a good point. I agree. I agree with your answer. We just, left Afghanistan, and, listen, there's 50,000 troops, give or take, within that region, right? Region defined by a whole lot of miles. You're not right next door, but the way China has prepared and some of their tactics and techniques that they have that our intelligence services are aware of, when they use swarming techniques, and then the hypersonic missile, which is designed to take out our carriers from a land-based missile, they can potentially, and if a carrier goes down, I mean, that's 5,000 people. 5,000. And I think if we had to bring that many body bags back home pretty quickly, I think our country would freak out. I think our country would freak out and get real and start asking, where's Taiwan again?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
I think, most people are probably thinking, Well, we're out of Afghanistan, quote, out of Afghanistan and Iraq. All the other countries are being nice. There must not be any deployed military around the world, so everything's holly jolly, and they don't pay attention to other stuff going on.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
so when this comes along, it's a complete shock.
Yes. And that's what we're trying to tell people today, that listen, we've got to be prepared for this. What you were just talking about with how many incursions the Chinese are, having into Taiwanese airspace. Like, this is the most that they've done ever.
Yeah, with fighter jets.
Right.
We're not talking about like Cessnas.
Right. I mean, some of the top of the line fighter jets that can cause a whole lot of damage really fast. And how quickly can we react? And how quickly are we supposed to react? How quickly should we react? So that's another question. China moves in and starts attacking Taiwan. What do you think we should militarily defend Taiwan with our forces in the region?
I think that's a tough question. With a lot of variables, and I'll give you the main one of the big variables here. So Japan has stated that they will defend Taiwan
Okay.
against China, and China has, in July, they posted a video on the CCP news, the government state sponsored news. I don't know what the name of it is. Threatening to nuke Japan if they defend Taiwan.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And
yeah,
what
they
was the
posted
international community's response to that?
Oh, I don't think it even amounted to anything.
Right.
Like nothing.
It just
Crickets.
Exactly. The UN, right? The mighty United Nations that we give like $1 billion a year to, and crickets.
Yeah. This was in July. So if you say that, theoretically, China tries to invade and take over Taiwan. Now Japan goes to their defense. Then China nukes Japan. I mean, we've got a very, very volatile situation that we absolutely have to step in at that point in time.
Right. And so there's two things to that. And one is the legal aspect that you referred to. So we are required to defend Japan. And everybody needs to remember that at the end of World War II, when we said you can't have any military, you can't even pretty much have a National Guard, but we will defend you. We will provide, your defense. Now, over the years, it's changed. They do now have a little bit more of a robust military. We don't feel like they're going to try to take, do another Pearl Harbor and attack us, right? But the legal part is still there, that if they are attacked, we're required to, come to their defense. And so what is the defense to being nuked? I mean, are we going to just launch nukes at China at that point? And then what happens? Now Russia, India, Pakistan. I mean, fuck it. Everybody just hits the button at that point.
Yeah, it's a bad deal at that point in time. The bright spot that I've seen over reading these articles from these headlines and some of the articles from over the past couple of months is that it seems like these aggressions that the Chinese is taking toward Taiwan is not necessarily backfiring on them, but a lot of countries are starting to say, hey, whoa, you need to slow it down a little bit. You're getting a little too aggressive here. Now, of course, talk is cheap, but at least it's getting some attention from some other countries, some of the European countries, some of the Australia, of course, because they're over in the Pacific. The UK is actually taking a pretty strong stance. Their ships have gone into the South China Sea in international waters, and China said, "Hey, you need to leave now," and they said, "No, we're going to stay," and they did. So good on them.
Yep.
But yeah, it's getting some attention from other countries besides just us. Because the other day I did read something the other day where the president got off Marine One, and a reporter asked something about China and Taiwan, and he said something about the Taiwan agreement, and so I mean, it's at least they're aware of it.
Yeah,
So,
no, I think it's a real
so,
good point, and I think it's a good point about other people getting involved. And I do believe either we just finished up or we're in the middle of a several nation exercise over there with Japan, and just like in the England, like you said, over there, and Australia's over there. So to me, that's the key. We have to have the world's support.
mhm.
That's the only way they're going to back down. You know, you think of the schoolyard bully. I mean, this big guy is over there just pounding on the little dude left and right every day for a month. And then, you know, one person can't really stop him. Two, maybe three, four, five, six, 10. 10 can definitely stop him.
Yeah.
And that's where you're going with that, is that if we get the world to agree that, you know, China should be independent, or I mean, Taiwan should be independent, or whatever they want to decide, but stop with the, you know, if you're not independent, you're going to be China and we're going to attack you, and, you know, or we're going to nuke Japan. Like, none of that's acceptable.
Yeah.
You know, why can't we, again, talk like human beings? You know, you and I were
Mm,
talking about that earlier. Like, can we like go talk face to face? You know, what is it that you want from Taiwan? You know, and can we do it? Can we do this? Figure this out, not militarily, and let's not nuke each other. I think that would turn out bad. I mean, I'm no
yeah.
expert, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm no expert, but the two nuclear atom bombs that were dropped in Japan were just horrible, horrible, horrible. And you know, the scenario we just talked about is potentially as the world just getting lit on fire.
Yeah.
At that point, how do you stop it? If one gets launched,
Right.
how do you even? Because you're going to retaliate. I mean, just
Yeah.
I don't know. Um, and so, and that's the whole point of this show today, is to bring awareness to what's going on out there and into the international community. And, you know, Americans, we are so focused just on our daily life. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. And, you know, but we have, each of us has so little skin in the game of foreign relations, our foreign policy, you know, some of our international agreements, because it doesn't impact them.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, we have what, 1.2 million active duty service people right now, 2 million total when you count reserves, National Guard. Such a small population. And again, if this were to be a military thing, so few people would be impacted that, you know, the only impact that would happen is if they happen to see 5 to 10,000 body bags, and it actually emotionally starts impacting them, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah. There's too many distractions nowadays.
right. I mean, and the distractions, and one of those distractions is, you know, listen, both parents have to work to make ends meet in the middle class arena now. Both parents have to work. You've got two kids, you know, they're in sports, they're in ballet, they're in gymnastics, they're, you know, got after school clubs, you know, I mean, you just, all that stuff right there, you're talking 12 hours of your day at least. And then you get home and you want to cook dinner, and then you've got to, you know, help the kids with homework. And then, you know, it's 9, 10 o'clock at night, and you probably didn't even see the news. And it probably was good that you didn't see it, but, you know, because it's all garbage anyway. And then you go to bed and you do it again, which is what we call the rat race, right? We're,
Exactly.
we're just, you know, we're just in that rat race. And then the government and the politics, they come out and they will try to get us, you know, emotionally pulled one side or the other to do something, but it's not really, the stuff that they're going to do is not so dramatic either side to really change our life so
Yeah.
that we would really have skin in the game, because they don't want us to have skin in the game. You know?
That way they can do what they want without consequence.
Exactly. That is exactly it. You know, they can go to war, use the 9/11, Powers Act to, defend somebody and go to war before Congress has to even agree to it, and then it only affects those 1.2 million people, potentially, and of course their families. I'm not saying, just those people, but you're right. And then there's no war bonds, no extra taxes, the 5% victory tax. In World War II, not only could you buy war bonds and everybody wanted to, but they just straight up, another 5% was coming off your check called the victory tax. Like, boom, so they don't want none of that. They don't want, because they don't want you to care, because as long as you don't volunteer to serve, you don't give a shit.
Yeah. If you're not paying attention, you're not going to know what they're doing. So.
Right. And that's really, man, that's what, to me, this show today is just, it's about that awareness. And, listen, I'm not saying you've got to devote as much attention to, as a bit like maybe you and I do, because it interests us and we understand how it impacts our military. You understand how many Marines are over there and what that would mean to them right now if they had to go and defend Taiwan. I understand my aviation teammates that are in the 25th Infantry Division in Hawaii. And also we have several Blackhawks in Japan and in South Korea. We have 28,000 soldiers. I understand what that means for them.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm not scared to die for the right things and the right people, but I want to make sure that we are willing to commit our people and resources to those right things. And if it's not the right thing, then I don't want to do it. Right. And that's where I want the people to think. That's what I want the people to think like too. I want them to think like me in that aspect. I want you to know enough to be able to be willing to commit to it or not commit to it. And I don't want you to be freaked out if something happens next week because of Taiwan. You know what I mean? Like, and here's another question. If you had to just guess, like, what would you, if you think that China is really going to make a move on Taiwan, what time frame would you put that on?
In the next few years. I mean, they're very strategic and patient. They think ahead. So they're gonna do what's necessary to prepare something like that well in advance, so that they know that they would go in with almost certain victory.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think so. There's a couple key things that you said. They're patient. They're extremely patient. I think it was 1994, 95-ish when they published their 50-year outlook. And they are, so I don't know, we're 30 years into it. They're essentially already have accomplished all of their goals for that 50 years already. And so when you combine that with, we're coming out of Afghanistan, they know we don't have appetite for war. They know that we've got a lot of division, a lot of infighting in our own country. They're starting to put the pressure on them. They're starting to move forces really close. And I think they're also looking at how reacted to Russia annexing Crimea.
For sure.
I think they're counting on the world to react in a very similar manner. If we don't have appetite for war, then our allies definitely don't. We take on 70-80% of the burden, right? Of any conflict. So if we don't have the appetite for war, they definitely don't either. And I think you're right with the patience and of China and they're very strategic, and they're looking and they're taking into consideration all of these things, which is also why I think they're pushing this now. And when I say now, I also agree with, I'll go as far as 3 years. I'll go as far as 3 years from now. I think 3 years from now, so 2021, 2024, which is October 2024. I think by then it'll be decided.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll either be Taiwan will be part of China, or there will have been a physical conflict and we will have successfully defended them, and China will stop and Taiwan will still be the same. Those are the two options. And I think that one of those two will happen within the next 3 years. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a fair assessment. Maybe we should also put a disclaimer out there that we're not warmongers, doomsayers, or conspiracy theorists. We are just practical awareness people.
Absolutely. No, that's a, I'm a podcaster, retired soldier. You're a podcaster, former Marine. We just have insight to the military. We have insight to geopolitics. We have no connections to any government people, any intelligence services. We have no idea, what's going on the inside. We're just, right. We're just wanting people to be aware so that if these things were to happen, yeah. And I, so the doomsday thing, listen, I hope I'm wrong.
Right. Yeah,
I hope
exactly.
I'm absolutely wrong. I don't want to go to war. I don't want us to ever go to war with anybody again. Like war is so stupid.
Yeah.
Like seriously, like, let's not, and I'm not saying not some of them weren't justified, but I'm just saying, like, can we talk this out? And can you radical other people trying to like put people in gas chambers and kill them and stuff? Can y'all like not do that?
Yeah, just drop the ego, man.
Right. Like fucking drop the ego and let people be themselves.
Yeah.
Like let people just be themselves, and then we don't have to come and fight, for them. And like, right. So I'm definitely not a warmonger. I definitely don't want to get involved. I'd rather not get involved. I think I'm just like you. I just want to bring awareness to the topic. And I want people to at least have enough understanding that, in case it does happen, it doesn't shock them, and they can think that, okay, well, if this does happen, what are we going to do? And do I support that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just something to keep in the back of their mind. And so when they are scrolling through the news, whatever news source they read, there's 50 stories going on every day, and it's hard to get through them all, especially when we just talked about the typical family's day. And then, if you happen to come across one, a small little headline that says China flew 187 jets into Taiwan's airspace, it doesn't shock you. And because what if Taiwan launches one anti-aircraft missile and it hits one, and then those other 186 jets turn and launch? I mean, it could happen so fast. And I think that's just, the other thing that you and I are trying to talk about today is we just want people to be aware. China's a big bully over there. They need a whole lot of resources. South China Sea is full of natural resources. They're trying to get the oil and gas. They want all the fish. They're a big bully over there, but we need the world to stand up to them. It can't just be us. It can't just be us. I mean, and I don't want to do it militarily either. So
yeah. And I want to read this. This is from a U.S. congressman, just for awareness of our support for Taiwan.
mm-hmm.
It says, dear friends, greetings and warmest wishes to the Taiwanese people on your 110th National Day. I am honored to congratulate all of you at the Taiwan Economic and Cultural Representative Office and share in the celebration of your national history. Taiwan and the United States share origin stories of revolutionaries throwing off the imperial yoke, and today our nations both remain dedicated to personal freedoms, strong human rights, and security in the Pacific. It brings me great joy to know that the relationship between the Taiwanese and American people continues to grow. We know how lucky we are to have partners like you. Once again, happy National Day. I look forward to many more years of cooperation and friendship between Taiwan and the United States.
There you go. So if that representative has a vote and says, should we defend or not defend China, what do you think that representative is going to say? Going to vote?
Oh, let's defend Taiwan.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's excellent. Excellent that you shared that, because again, the people, so we need to find out, again, if you care a little bit, find out what your representative, what's their position on it. A lot of them will have their positions on their websites and you can go search them, but you can send them an email and you'll probably get a form letter email. But if just ask what their position is so we can start to kind of know, right? Because again, it doesn't matter what you and I say on this podcast, whether we should or shouldn't go to war. It's those representatives or the executive branch that may use executive powers to send us to war, you know?
Exactly.
So,
and to further illustrate that point, yesterday, Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen made a speech and pledged defense of the island of Taiwan in the face of Chinese pressure.
yeah, I mean, so they're ready. They're ready to fight till the death. I mean, this is what it kind of sounds like. So if a country is willing to fight for the death, and really what you just read too, you hear them talking about independence. I mean, we know a little bit about that, and that's what that congressman was referring to. Like, we share that commonality, and we've always supported people that want to be independent, especially of, a country that they don't have the best human rights in China. And of course they're communists in Taiwan, and they can do what they want. They're free. They're more or less democratic. So obviously we would support them. I just don't see us not, honestly. I just don't see us not supporting them. With all that being said, all of those things. And again, I just don't want people to freak out when it happens.
Right.
I don't want them to freak out when we do defend them and we may lose some life, equipment, and it may get ugly, pretty quick. It may not. I don't know. Cooler heads could prevail. I hope so. I really, really, really hope so. But I just don't want people to freak out and be like, where did this come from? Like, what happened? Like, listen, Billy Bob, I know, you've been busy down in the swamps, man, but there's other stuff going on out there in the world. And I'm not picking on the swamp people. I love swamp people, but, so yeah.
Well, and this is something to pay attention to for all of Americans, because of what we're talking about as far as the number of casualties that this could potentially produce.
Absolutely. It could produce a high number of casualties, cost us a whole lot more money and equipment, and then it could potentially trigger a wider war, depending on who got involved. If they did something to China, or to Japan, even if they just conventionally did something to Japan, you're talking, and if England gets involved, and all of a sudden Russia says, you know what, we want to just continue pushing into Ukraine and Poland at the time, what happens there? Because they're going to start taking advantage of the situation and our inability to be everywhere at once. It's a spot for a potential world war, quickly, a lot faster than Twitter, if people can even believe that.
Yeah. I mean, China's been in talks with Russia, with the Taliban. The Taliban's been in talks with Russia. So there's a lot of things that are going on. And these are stories you might have to go to, like what I've been doing is going to the Taiwan and Japanese news outlets to find this stuff. I haven't gone to US news outlets because of obvious reasons, but
right.
But yeah, I mean, China's been investing in infrastructure around the world for a number of years now, and they own so much stuff in Afghanistan, Iraq, in Africa, and Europe. Um, China actually got uh, I don't know if upset's the right word. They did not like us going into Iraq in 2003 because of all the infrastructure that they had there. So that was another point of tension between the U.S. and China that probably was never even talked about once. So,
Yeah, no, it's a good point. So I think every deep water port on the east coast of Africa, China essentially owns. And what they did with what you're talking about with the investing in infrastructure, they went into all these poor countries and offered them these ridiculously terrible loan rates and opportunities that they knew they couldn't pay back. So when they defaulted on them, now they own them.
yep.
That's their play. They do it all over the world. They've been doing it. And now, like you just said, they own, all those deep water ports in Africa. So here's the story. When it talks about the infrastructure in Iraq. So I had a very specific situation, and I shared it on a couple episodes ago with my first air assault in Iraq. It wasn't China though; it was Russia, and there was this Russian power plant that was in this area that the guys kept. There was a lot of kinetic fighting going on, and the bad guys would squirt, we called them squirters, would squirt across the river and run over into this power plant. And because it was a Russian owned power plant, we would not bomb it. We wouldn't go in there. We wouldn't do anything. And I couldn't figure it out, man. I'm like, I don't even understand. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like, I don't give a shit. There's bad guys in there. Like, cause every time we would hit this village, they would just, run over there. So this time when we went in, we set up, we had Apaches on the river, basically guarding that side, and they got clearance to shoot whenever they jumped in the little dinghies that were trying to get across the river. But yeah, due to the Russian power plant, and we would not, hit it for that reasons, because Russians didn't want us to or whatever. And you're exactly right. When nobody talked about that. Nobody. Yet it was happening. That was impacting our commander's decisions on the ground.
Right.
I mean, that's mind boggling, man. Mind boggling. And, you and I have talked about Fallujah for sure. And, with 99% of the civilians out, should have just leveled that place. But
Yeah.
certain people got involved and was like, nope.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I mean, if it was World War II total warfare, there's no question.
Oh, absolutely. We would have just lined up B-52 to B-52, wingtip to wingtip, baby. Yep. And let it rain from one corner to the next. And do that for about a week, and then be like, hey, anybody home?
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody want to come out? I mean, yeah, but that's another sad topic of our military and political leaders can't agree on what needs to happen and how it needs to happen. So yeah, China's doing bad stuff out there. China's the big bully in the world. We've all got to be more aware of it. And that's our point today, talking about this. It's, do I think it's going to happen next week, next month? No, but we need to be aware of it because it impacts all of us. And at some point, all of us are going to have skin in the game. At some point, we're all going to either need to put the uniform on or put the uniform back on, or start paying more money in higher taxes like previous generations, because we're just going to run out of money and we can't afford all this stuff. And, hey, what if China gets Taiwan and has all those microprocessors and chips, and we can't even launch our badass fighter jets and subs? And, now what are we going to do? Like,
yeah, we're going to go back to analog and mechanical.
Right. Hey, Marines, I hope y'all can do land nav, because in the Army, we struggle at that now. We rely on our daggers too much and our GPS equipment. So
yeah, I know that my generation can.
Yeah, there you go. We're going to need y'all to.
I'm assuming this new generation can too.
I'm hoping. I hope they do. I joke because I know I'm aviation, and I did land nav only when I had to. Uh, but really, throughout my career, I mean, obviously we had GPS in our aircraft and we're flying and that kind of stuff. When we would do land nav and actually learn how to look at the map, we would do, E&E exercises, escape and evade. We call it personnel recovery training. We'd get dropped off somewhere, and we would have to, E&E somewhere to a certain point, have to look at the map and be like, man, where am I? And then try to start figuring out. And some of us were obviously a little bit better at it than others, but aviation, typically we're not so good at it. But hopefully the infantry guys are much better at it than we are. We'll get you on time on target.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't know. I'm not much help to you after that. But yeah. So anyway, man, yeah, big bully China. We need to be aware. Let's pay attention, folks. There's a lot of things that impact us out there. And one of the reasons it doesn't impact us right now is because our government deliberately does that. So wants us to stay focused on our rat race and doesn't want us to really get overly involved in what's going on so they can do whatever they want. All right. Any last thoughts you got today on this subject, brother?
No, I think we covered it.
Hopefully
we did.
Yeah, no, I think so. Now, it was a good show, man. Always appreciate your insight and your thoughts, and of course, like you said, we're not warmongers, man. We just want people to be aware. So it's great. Now, I appreciate your insight. I love having you on the show and discussing these types of things because I think sometimes, people are afraid to talk about it, like, well, what do you think? What should we do? Dude, let's talk about it. Let's all talk about it so that we can have a real thought on it and tell our representatives, hey, this is what we think, but anyway, cool. Well, all right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Another great episode, of Miller's Military Moments with me, your co-host, Jason Miller, Master Sergeant Retired, and Grant Belvin, former Marine Scout Sniper, always giving us his time, and we appreciate you coming on the show, brother.
Yeah, thank you, man. I love it.
Awesome. All right. Well, I hope everybody is doing great, staying healthy, being happy. And, the best place to find me is millersmilitarymoments.com. And until next time, peace.